After her boyfriend bailed on their wedding, my best friend broke down crying and begged my fiance to step in and save the day. Blake Keller comforted me gently. Dawn, Noelle, and I grew up together. We've been close for years, closer than family, honestly. Today is just for show. Besides, our wedding's next week anyway, so think of it as a rehearsal in advance. I felt terrible for my best friend. After struggling with myself for a long time, I finally gritted my teeth and nodded. Just like that, I watched with my own eyes as my boyfriend, who was supposed to be the best man, became my best friend's groom. At the wedding, Blake held Noelle's hand, his eyes filled with affection. When the officiant asked whether he was willing, he answered even more firmly than he had when he proposed to me. I kept telling myself not to take it seriously, that it was just an act and I should not overthink it. That was what I believed, until after they exchanged rings. The officiant smiled and said, "You may now kiss the bride." The crowd instantly started cheering, urging them to kiss. Blushing, Noelle hurriedly reassured me. "Dawn, don't worry. We'll fake it with the camera angle." I believed her. But in the very next second, Blake lifted her chin and deeply kissed her for real in front of everyone. The moment he kissed her, the entire venue exploded with excitement. It wasn't a fake angle, and it definitely was not a quick, harmless peck either. It was a deep, passionate kiss, lips and tongues tangling together. I froze where I stood, my face draining of all color. "Oh my God, are they really just acting?" one of the bridesmaids beside me whispered softly. "They're way too into it." Indeed, they were way too into it, so much so that even I almost started believing they were the real couple. Thunderous applause erupted from the crowd below the stage, and someone shouted, "One more." Noelle hurriedly pushed Blake away and turned toward me with a flushed face. But she had barely opened her mouth when Blake grabbed her by the shoulders and kissed her again. I lowered my head and stared at myself in the bridesmaid dress, bouquet still clutched in my hands. Tears nearly spilled from my eyes. The unbearably long kiss finally ended. Noelle immediately ran over to me. "Dawn, I'm sorry. I really didn't know." Before she could finish, Blake grabbed her wrist and pulled her protectively behind him. "Dawn, it was just acting. You agreed to this from the start. You can't blame Noelle." He said it with such a straight face that I suddenly seemed like the unreasonable one. Noelle quickly added from the side, "Dawn, Blake and I really don't have anything going on. You're the one he loves." The one he loves? He knew perfectly well I would be hurt, yet he still kissed another woman right in front of me. Furious, I lifted my skirt and ran out of the wedding hall. If this had happened before, Blake definitely would have chased after me to comfort me. But this time, he never showed up even when I cried in the cold wind for nearly half an hour. After wiping the tears from the corners of my eyes, I finally headed back toward the banquet hall. As I passed the hallway, the dressing room door sat slightly ajar, faint noises drifting from inside. And then my entire body went rigid, for on the sofa inside the dressing room, Blake and Noelle were tangled together in a half-dressed mess. Noelle's skirt had been shoved up to her waist, their heavy breathing filling the room with unbearable intimacy. With a flirty glare, she slapped him lightly. "Blake, are you insane? What if Dawn finds out?" Blake did not look worried at all. Instead, he let out a low chuckle. "We've been sneaking around for 2 years already. If she were going to find out, she would have done so by now." At that, he tightened his grip around her waist and shoved her harder beneath him. "Besides, we're married. Sleeping with my own wife isn't illegal, is it? 2 years together. Married?" Ice flooded through my entire body, and my breathing turned heavy. Noelle stopped resisting and pressed herself closer to him. "If not for the baby, I'd never marry you. You're supposed to marry Dawn next week. Have you figured out what you're going to do yet?" My nails dug viciously into my palms as I fought back the tears threatening to fall. "The baby she's carrying is Blake's?" Blake wrapped an arm around her, his eyes gentler than I had ever seen before. "I'll just make a fake marriage certificate. Dawn trusts me too much to ever suspect anything. And even if I marry her, so what? I'll still belong to you." Noelle let out a soft cry. "Careful. The baby. Relax. I'll be gentle." The obscene sounds that followed stabbed straight through my chest until it hurt so badly I could barely breathe. Staggering backward several steps, I braced myself against the wall and gasped for air. One was my best friend of 4 years in college. The other was the man I had loved for 5 years. The two people I trusted most had been sleeping together behind my back, hiding it all beneath the excuse of being close friends. A long while later, Blake finally walked out holding Noelle's hand. The moment they saw me, panic flashed across both their faces, but Noelle reacted quickly and grabbed me. At a glance, I spotted the hickey blooming across her collarbone. "Dawn, I'm sorry. Blake got really carried away earlier. I already scolded him for it." She turned and glared at Blake. "Hurry up and apologize to Dawn." Blake immediately reached over to wipe my tears. "Dawn, it's all on me. I didn't think about your feelings." I stared into his sincere-looking eyes and remembered the way he had kissed Noelle. The way he had looked at her. The way he had been 100 times more invested than he had ever been with me. My hand clenched tightly as I raised it, about to slap Noelle across the face. But Blake grabbed my wrist at once and shoved me away. Have you lost your mind? The force sent me crashing into the wall, pain exploding across my back as my vision darkened. Blake, are you and Noelle really just friends? Panic flashed across Blake's eyes, but he quickly composed himself and replaced it with confusion. You're doubting me? Noelle and I grew up together. We've known each other so long that we just sometimes forget our boundaries. It's not what you think. Even now, he still refused to admit it. Thinking back carefully, the signs had been there all along. Ever since I started dating Blake, no matter where we went, it was always the three of us together. He could never remember my birthday, yet every year at midnight, he never failed to send Noelle birthday wishes right on time. I could not eat spicy food, but every dish he ordered was loaded with chili because Noelle liked it. Whenever Noelle got her period, he would immediately give her time off work. When I was in so much pain that I nearly slammed into walls, he merely told me to tough it out and reminded me not to be late for meetings. Noelle and I had both stayed by Blake's side while he built the company from scratch. However, after the company went public, Noelle's salary became twice mine. It wasn't like I had never argued or gotten jealous before. Blake always used the same excuse. Noelle and I have known each other for years, and she's your friend too. I can't treat her unfairly. Friends? The way he looked at her was gentler than the way he had ever looked at me. Blake told me to go home first and calm down before dragging me away from the venue. But after driving me back to the apartment, he immediately left again. Before leaving, he said, Noelle already feels terrible getting dumped just before her wedding. What you said earlier upset her so badly it affected the baby. I'm going to check on her for you. His entire focus was on Noelle. He never once considered how I felt at that moment. After getting home, I stumbled upon a diary. Every single page had a plane ticket attached to it, tickets from Blake flying to Haverland, and below them were handwritten notes from him. Noelle got transferred to the overseas branch. Got to go see her and make sure she's okay. Business trip to Haverland. Stayed for 3 days, but honestly, I just wanted to see her. I flipped to the page dated on our 3rd anniversary. When I read the entry, my tears finally broke free. I struggled with it for a long time, but I ultimately confessed my love for her. Turns out she liked me too. I didn't want to lose her. Noelle couldn't bear seeing Dawn heartbroken, so she told me not to break up with her. I agreed. She finally slept with me tonight. Compared to Dawn, my body seems to like her more. That day, I had called Blake more than 10 times. He rejected every single call. In the end, he only sent me one cold message. Busy. Stop bothering me. So, that was what he had been busy with, sleeping with my best friend and his so-called dear friend. I flipped to the final page of the diary. The entry had been written only a few days ago. Noelle's pregnant. How dare she marry some random guy? No way I'm letting her go. Tucked inside the diary was a pregnancy test report, and under the father's name, Blake Keller, was clearly written. My fingers trembled violently as I gripped the paper tighter. The day Blake found out Noelle was pregnant, he immediately flew to Haverland. He had even deliberately approved leave for me, asking me to care for Noelle there and also help her plan the wedding. And that jerk, who abandoned her at the altar. Blake drove him away himself. He was adamant about making Noelle his wife. My phone suddenly rang. It was my mother calling again to urge me about the wedding. Dawn, when are you and Blake returning to the country? The whole family's waiting to attend the wedding. Mom, I'm not marrying Blake. Before she could start yelling, I continued calmly, don't worry. The wedding will still happen as planned. It was just that the groom would be someone else. I spent the entire night reading that diary. 2 years. More than 100 plane tickets. Every single page carried Noelle's name. By morning, I was standing outside Noelle's apartment. Blake's leather shoes sat by the entrance, and laughter drifted lightly from the kitchen. The same Blake who had never once cooked for me was now wearing an apron, making soup for Noelle. Noelle wrapped her arms around his waist from behind. You should go check on Dawn. She must be really upset being alone right now. Blake's tone was indifferent, like he was talking about someone completely unimportant. I dare her to be upset. You're pregnant, and she didn't even bother taking care of you. Now, she expects me to coax her. Noelle. I don't think I ever liked Dawn that much. Not in the past, not now. She's never compared to you. Those words pierced straight through my heart. 5 years together. I had stayed by his side while he built his company from nothing. I watched him rise step by step until the company finally went public. And in the end, all I got was a casual, I never liked her that much. I couldn't hold it in anymore. My slap landed hard across Blake's face. Blake Keller, we're done. I'm giving you two my blessing. Noelle hurried forward to stop me. Dawn, you're getting the wrong idea. I threw the pregnancy report and diary straight at her face. That baby belongs to Blake, doesn't it? Do you two have any shame at all? Blake bent down and calmly picked everything up, his expression terrifyingly composed. So what, Dawn? Our wedding's next week. If we break up now, how will you explain it to your family? Noelle immediately burst into tears. I'm sorry, Dawn. I'll end the pregnancy right away. Blake instantly pulled her into his arms and glared at me coldly. Don't you dare. Dawn Nichols, you had an abortion before, who knows if you can even still have children. You should be thanking Noelle instead. The fact that I'm still willing to go through with the wedding with you is already more than generous enough. You're such a slut, who else other than me would even want you? Noelle tried to cover his mouth, but it was already too late. I froze completely as warmth flooded my eyes. When I was 19, I got pregnant with my ex-boyfriend's child. The abortion damaged my body badly, and the doctor told me it would be difficult for me to ever get pregnant again. After I returned to school, rumors spread everywhere. People said I had loose morals. They claimed I had become some rich man's sugar baby and got knocked up. I posted explanation after explanation online, but nobody believed me. I was isolated. Bullied. No matter where I went, people pointed at me behind my back. There were several times when I nearly died. But back then, Noelle stayed by my side. Again and again, she pulled me back from the edge. Later, she introduced Blake to me. He never believed those rumors. Whenever he heard people talking badly about me, he would rush forward and fight them for my sake. The day we got together caused an uproar across the entire university. Everyone said Blake had lost his mind. After all, why would the campus heartthrob date a girl with a stained past? But he held my hand tightly and said, Dawn's the best girl in the world. I wish I could give her everything. I believed him. But now, the same man who once pulled me out of hell with his own hands was calling me dirty. I looked into Blake's eyes. Those eyes had once been filled with tenderness. Now, there was nothing left inside them except coldness. Blake, back then, you said you didn't believe those rumors. You said you felt sorry for me. What about now? Blake said nothing, but his eyes had already given me the answer. Seeing the utterly shattered look on my face, Noelle finally panicked. Dawn, don't take it seriously. Blake was just angry and talking nonsense. She reached for my hand, but rage exploded inside me as I violently shoved her away. A cry of pain rang out. She fell to the floor, clutching her stomach as her face turned deathly pale. My stomach, it hurts. Before I could even react, a violent force slammed into me. Blake shoved me hard against the table, knocking over a glass cup. The shattered pieces stabbed deep into my palm. Blood instantly poured out, and the pain made my entire body tremble uncontrollably. Blake scooped Noelle into his arms and roared at me with bloodshot eyes. If anything happens to Noelle or the baby, I'm coming for you, Dawn. And you can forget about ever having that wedding. Without sparing me another glance, he rushed out with Noelle in his arms. I remained kneeling amid the shattered mess, my hands covered in blood. What Blake still didn't know was that even without him, the wedding would still go on. That same night, I flew back home. The moment I landed, I texted my groom. I'm back. We'll get the marriage certificate tomorrow. The reply came instantly. Okay. Back then, Blake had dumped every single wedding arrangement onto me, claiming he was too busy with work and told me to make all the decisions myself. So I took the liberty of changing the groom. On the wedding day, I walked downstairs in my wedding dress to find a black bridal car parked outside the house. Blake had somehow rushed back as well, a bouquet of red roses in his hands. His expression was much softer than before, even carrying a hint of nervousness. Dawn, what happened before was my fault. I'm all yours today. I'll cooperate and finish the wedding with you, okay? Before I could answer, he continued laying out conditions. But you have to promise me you won't make things difficult for Noelle anymore. She still cares about you. The way he said it sounded almost charitable. And it was obvious he was doing this more for Noelle's sake than mine. I simply shook my head. Don't bother. Blake assumed I was still throwing a tantrum. Frowning, he grabbed my wrist and dragged me toward the car. Let's go. Blake, let go of me. He ignored me completely and forcefully shoved me into the car. I slammed my hands against the window in panic. Blake, let me out. Right now. Dawn Nichols, today's our wedding day. Do you really have to make things this ugly? Blake, you've got the wrong idea. The groom isn't. I had barely opened my mouth when Blake's phone rang. Noelle's crying instantly drowned out my voice. Blake, my car got hit. I'm so scared. Is the baby going? Blake turned grim at once. I'll be right there. At that, he yanked the steering wheel sharply, turning the car around before speeding off like a madman. Grief and fury rushed straight to my head. I pounded against the car window so hard my palms turned red. Blake, let me out. I need to get to the wedding. Blake frowned tightly and snapped at me. Noelle was in a car accident, and all you care about is the wedding? The ceremony's cancelled. Your best friend's hurt and you don't even care? Are you really that desperate to get married? I stared at his bloodshot eyes, my voice hoarse. What does it matter to me whether she lives or dies? Blake said nothing and floored the gas. The car whipped around a sharp turn, and my head slammed violently into the window glass. A sharp pain exploded across my forehead as blood streamed down instantly. He froze for a second, but he still did not stop the car. Grinding his teeth, he snapped, "I told you to sit still, but you just had to keep acting up." Blood flowed into my eyes, turning the entire world red. The car sped faster and faster. Despair and hatred spread through me like poisonous vines. Taking a deep breath, I made a completely insane decision. Blake was still warning me coldly. "Don't even think about me letting you out. And when we see Noelle later, you'd better apologize to her." Before he could finish, I shoved the car door open. Violent wind rushed inside as the skirt of my wedding dress was swept out into the air. Blake's eyes widened in panic. "Dawn. What are you doing?" I didn't give him any time to react. I jumped. The moment my body flew into the air, unbearable pain crashed into me. All I could hear was the roar of the wind beside my ears. And behind me, Blake's heartbroken scream tore through the air. "Dawn." The air rushed past my ears in a deafening roar, tearing at the delicate lace of my wedding veil. For a fraction of a second, there was a weightless, terrifying suspension, a moment where the world hung entirely silent. Then came the impact. It wasn't like in the movies. There was no clean, dramatic roll. The gravel-strewn asphalt tore through the layers of silk and tulle of my wedding dress, scraping my skin with a raw, burning agony. My shoulder collided violently with the road, sending a jarring shockwave straight through my spine. I felt myself tumble, my vision spinning in dizzying flashes of gray road, blue sky, and the brilliant, mocking crimson of my own blood. Screams. The screech of tires. The heavy scent of burning rubber filled the air as Blake's car skidded to a halt yards away. I lay on the cold ground, my breath caught in my throat, staring up at the clouds. Every inch of my body felt as though it had been shattered into 1,000 pieces, but inside my chest, a strange, hollow sense of relief bloomed. I was free. Dawn. Dawn. Blake's voice was frantic, stripped of all its usual cold arrogance. I heard the car door slam, followed by the hurried, uneven pounding of his footsteps. Sprinting toward me. "Are you insane? What did you do? Why would you do that?" He fell to his knees beside me, his hands shaking violently as he reached out, not knowing where to touch me. The pristine red roses he had been holding earlier were scattered across the asphalt, crushed beneath his own boots. "Dawn, speak to me. Look at me." I slowly turned my head, ignoring the white-hot pain in my neck. Through the blood dripping from my forehead, his face looked distorted, pale, and ugly. "Don't touch me," I whispered, the words scraping against my raw throat. "I was just trying to get you to Noelle. Why did you have to react like this?" Even now, panic-stricken and trembling, his first instinct was to deflect. "You did this on purpose to punish me, didn't you? To make me feel guilty." Before I could muster the energy to spit in his face, the quiet hum of a high-end engine broke the tension. A sleek, charcoal-black SUV pulled up to the curb with terrifying precision. Before the vehicle had even fully stopped, the door threw open. A tall, imposing figure stepped out, his movements swift and deliberate. Ethan Vance. The man who, just yesterday, had agreed to be my groom. He wasn't wearing the cheap, rented suit Blake had suggested for our wedding. Ethan wore a tailored, midnight black tuxedo, his physical presence commanding and ice-cold. But the moment his dark eyes landed on my broken form on the asphalt, his composure cracked. "Dawn." Ethan was by my side in an instant, pushing Blake away with a force that sent Blake stumbling back onto the gravel. "Who the hell are you?" Blake snarled, recovering his balance. "Get your hands off her. She's my fiance." Ethan didn't even look at him. His hands, usually so steady and firm, trembled slightly as he gently cradled my head, keeping my neck secure. He took off his tuxedo jacket and carefully draped it over my shivering, blood-soaked body. The scent of cedarwood and faint rain on his jacket instantly enveloped me, shielding me from the bitter wind. "I'm here, Dawn," Ethan whispered, his voice deep and remarkably steady, though I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching with suppressed rage. "You're safe. I've got you." "Ethan." My vision was beginning to blur, the adrenaline fading to leave only a numbing, heavy exhaustion. The wedding. It doesn't matter. "None of it matters right now," he said gently, pressing a soft kiss to my bloody temple. "The ambulance is already on its way. Just close your eyes." "Hey. I asked you a question." Blake stormed forward, grabbing Ethan's shoulder. "Who do you think you are?" "I'm her fiancé. We are supposed to get married today." Ethan slowly stood up. The contrast between the two men was stark. Blake, disheveled, frantic, and dripping with defensive anger. Ethan, tall, statuesque, and radiating a quiet, lethal authority that made the air around them turn cold. With a single, swift motion, Ethan gripped Blake's wrist, twisting it just enough to force him to his knees with a sharp gasp of pain. Your wedding? Ethan's voice was dangerously low, vibrating with an icy fury. The only place you're going today, Mr. Keller, is to hell. Dawn Nichols is no longer any concern of yours. She is my wife. Wife? Blake gasped, his eyes widening in sheer disbelief. That's impossible. She was with me this morning. She's lying to you, We registered our marriage yesterday afternoon, Ethan said, releasing Blake's wrist with a flick of disgust, as if he had just touched trash. Legally, she has absolutely nothing to do with you. If you ever come within 10 feet of her again, I will personally ensure that Keller Tech is erased from this city before the sun sets. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. I let my eyes flutter shut, the darkness finally pulling me under, safe in the knowledge that for the first time in 5 years, someone was standing in front of me, shielding me from the storm. The scent of antiseptic and the rhythmic, soft beeping of a heart monitor greeted me when I finally opened my eyes. The ceiling was white and clean. Soft sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of what looked like a luxury private hospital suite. You're awake. I turned my head slowly. The pain was still there, but it was dull, managed by the foredrip attached to the back of my hand. Ethan was sitting in a chair beside my bed. He had changed into a simple black sweater, but the exhaustion on his face was clear. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his jaw was covered in a light stubble. Yet, the moment he saw me looking at him, a wave of relief washed over his features, softening his harsh lines. How do you feel? He asked, leaning forward and gently taking my uninjured hand in his. His palm was warm and dry, grounding me. Like I got hit by a truck, I croaked, trying to smile. Or, jumped out of one. Ethan didn't laugh. His grip on my hand tightened slightly. Don't ever do that again, Dawn. When I saw you on that road, my heart stopped. I looked down at our joined hands. On his ring finger, a simple, elegant platinum band caught the light. Are we really married? I asked softly. We are, Ethan said, pulling a neat leather folder from the bedside table. He opened it to reveal a legally binding marriage certificate, stamped and signed. We signed the digital consent forms the moment you got back to the country, and my lawyers finalized the registration yesterday morning. You are officially Dawn Vance. Tears pricked the corners of my eyes. 5 years. I had spent 5 years waiting for Blake to give me a legal commitment, only for him to use every excuse in the book to delay it, eventually planning to hand me a fake certificate while he slept with my best friend. And here was Ethan, a man I had known briefly through business circles years ago, who had stepped up without a single hesitation the moment I reached out to him in my despair. Why did you do it, Ethan? I whispered. I was a mess. You knew my reputation. You knew about the rumors from college, and you knew I was using this wedding to get back at Blake. Why agree to marry me? Ethan looked at me, his dark eyes filled with an intensity that made my heart skip a beat. Because those rumors were lies, Dawn. I knew it then, and I know it now, he said, his voice thick with emotion. And as for using me, you can use me for the rest of your life if it means keeping you safe. I've waited 5 years for you to look at me. I wasn't going to let this chance slip away. I stared at him, stunned. You've waited 5 years? Before he could answer, a soft knock sounded at the door. Ethan's assistant, a young man in a sharp gray suit, stepped in with a look of hesitation. Mr. Vance, I'm sorry to disturb you, but Blake Keller is downstairs. He's causing a scene, demanding to see Mrs. Vance. He brought Noelle Reed with him. The mention of those two names made my blood run cold. Ethan's expression instantly reverted to the icy, unyielding mask I had seen on the road. He stood up, smoothing down his sweater. Stay here and rest, Ethan said, his voice gentling as he looked down at me. I'll handle them. No, I said, struggling to sit up. The movement sent a sharp pain through my ribs, but I grit my teeth and pushed through it. I want to see them. I want to see them realize exactly what they've lost. Ethan looked at me for a long moment, assessing my resolve. Finally, he nodded. He reached out, gently helping me prop myself up against the pillows, before turning to his assistant. Bring them up. And have security stand outside the door. When Blake and Noelle walked into the room, they looked like a circus act. Blake's clothes were still disheveled, and his face was flushed with anger. Noelle was clinging to his arm, wearing a soft, oversized cardigan, her face pale and her eyes red-rimmed from crying. She looked fragile, like a delicate flower that would wilt at any moment, the exact act she had used to fool me for years. Dawn. Noelle cried out the moment she saw me, attempting to rush to the side. Of my bed. Oh my God, Dawn, look at you. Why would you do something so reckless? You almost killed yourself. Stay where you are, Ethan said, his voice dropping an octave. The sheer authority in his tone made Noelle freeze mid-step. She looked at Ethan, then at Blake, a flicker of fear crossing her eyes. Dawn, who is this man? Blake demanded, stepping forward to shield Noelle. And what is this nonsense about you being married? We have a wedding to finish. The guests are waiting, the media is asking questions. Do you have any idea how much damage this is doing to Keller Tech's reputation? I let out a cold, humorless laugh. Keller Tech's reputation? I looked at Blake, the man I had loved blindly for half a decade. I jumped out of a moving car. Blake. I am covered in stitches and bruises. And your first thought is your company's reputation? If you hadn't thrown a tantrum over nothing, none of this would have happened. Blake snapped, his guilt turning into ugly defensiveness. I told you, Noelle was in an accident. I had to go to her. An accident? I turned my gaze to Noelle. Noelle, please tell me. Where are your injuries? Where is the blood? Where are the bruises? Noelle shrank back, her fingers clutching Blake's sleeve tighter. Dawn, my car was just rear-ended. I was shocked, and my stomach hurt. I was worried. About the baby. The baby, I repeated, my voice flat. The baby that belongs to my fiance. The baby you conceived while pretending to be my best friend, while pretending to support me through my wedding planning. Dawn, we didn't mean to. Noelle sobbed, tears flowing freely down her cheeks. It just happened. Blake and I. We've always had feelings for each other, but we suppressed them for your sake. We didn't want to hurt you. For my sake. I felt a sickening wave of disgust wash over me. You slept together for 2 years for my sake. You wrote in your diary that my body didn't compare to hers for my sake, Blake. Blake's face drained of color. He hadn't realized I had read the entire diary. Dawn, that was just a private journal. It didn't mean anything, Blake stammered, his confident facade finally cracking. I was going to marry you. I was going to give you everything. You're a damaged woman, Dawn. No one else would have taken you in after what happened in college. You should be grateful. Smack. The sound of the slap echoed sharply through the quiet hospital room. It wasn't me who had delivered it. Ethan stood over Blake, his chest rising and falling slightly, his hands still raised. Blake was clutching his cheek, his eyes wide with shock and fury. If you utter one more disrespectful word to my wife, Ethan said, his voice dangerously quiet, I will ensure you never speak again. You hit me? Blake gasped. Do you know who I am? I am the CEO of Keller Tech. We are about to launch our second round funding. We have the backing of the Vance Group? Ethan interrupted, a cold, mocking smile playing on his lips. The investment firm you've been begging for a meeting with for the last 6 months? Blake froze. Vance Group? You're Ethan Vance? The realization hit Blake like a physical blow. His jaw dropped, his eyes darting from Ethan to me, and then back to Ethan. The Vance Group was the undisputed giant of the city's financial sector. A single word from Ethan could blackball Keller Tech from ever receiving a single dime of venture capital. Again. No, that can't be, Noelle whispered, her fragile act slipping as horror took over. Dawn, how could you marry him? Because he actually respects me, I said, looking at them both with absolute detachment. Because he doesn't see me as damaged. And because unlike the two of you, he has a conscience. I looked at Ethan, and the unspoken understanding between us was clear. Get them out of here, Ethan ordered the security guards waiting at the door. And call the legal department. Tell them to initiate the hostile takeover of Keller Tech immediately. Dawn, wait. You can't do this. Blake screamed as the security guards grabbed his arms, dragging him backward. You built that company with me. Your shares. My shares will be transferred to the Vance Group by tomorrow morning, I said coldly. Goodbye, Blake. Have a nice life with your dear friend. Their screams of protest were cut off as the heavy oak doors of the VIP suite slammed shut. With Blake and Noelle gone, the room fell into a peaceful silence. But the storm inside me hadn't fully settled. Ethan, I said softly, looking at the ceiling. There's something I need to know. What did you mean earlier when you said the rumors from college were lies? Ethan walked back to the bed and sat down, his expression serious. Dawn, when you were 19, the rumors about your abortion and your loose morals, did you ever wonder how they spread so quickly? How the entire university seemed to have access to your medical records? My breath hitched. I thought the clinic had a data leak. Or that someone saw me there. No, Ethan said, pulling out his tablet. He swiped through a few documents before handing it to me. My team did some digging into Noelle Reed's medical history while you were asleep. Take a look. I took the tablet, my eyes scanning the scanned medical files. The documents were from a university clinic, dated 7 years ago. It was an admission record for an abortion procedure. The name on the patient file was indeed Dawn Nichols, but as I scrolled down to the signature and the emergency contact details, my heart stopped. The signature was a clumsy imitation of my handwriting. And the emergency contact number listed was Noelle's personal phone number. But that wasn't all. Attached to the file was a blood type report. The patient's blood type was listed as O negative. My blood type is A positive. Noelle's blood type is O negative. She used my ID, I whispered, the realization hitting me like a physical punch to the chest. She got pregnant by some married man, used my student ID card to get the abortion at the university clinic under my name to protect her own reputation, and then she leaked the rumors herself? Exactly, Ethan said, his eyes burning with a dark, protective anger. She created the rumor to destroy your reputation, and then she played the savior to keep you dependent on her. She isolated you so that she could control you. And when Blake came along, she introduced him to you because she knew Blake was a narcissist who could easily be manipulated. And Blake knew? I asked, my voice trembling. No, Blake didn't know about Noelle's abortion, Ethan replied. But he used those rumors to keep your self-esteem low. He wanted you to feel like you were damaged goods so you would never leave him, even while he was sleeping with Noelle behind your back. They are both monsters, Dawn. A single, hot tear escaped my eye and rolled down my cheek. For 7 years, I had carried the guilt and shame of a stained past. I had endured the dirty looks, the whispers, the bullying, and the cruel comments from Blake. I had believed I was lucky to have Noelle as a friend and Blake as a partner. It had all been a lie. A sick, twisted game played by the two people I trusted most. They took 7 years of my life, I whispered, my fists clenching so hard my nails dug into my palms. They made me feel like I was nothing. Ethan gently covered my fists with his hands, forcing me to relax. They won't take another second, he said firmly. I've already had my lawyers compile this evidence. Identity theft, medical fraud, and defamation. We have enough to put Noelle behind bars, and we have enough to destroy Blake's company. What do you want to do, Dawn? I looked at Ethan, the cold, heavy weight in my chest transforming into a burning fire of resolve. I don't just want them in jail, I said, my voice steady and cold. I want them to watch everything they've built crumble to ash first. I want them to feel the exact same public humiliation they put me through. Ethan's lips curved into a dark, satisfied smile. As you wish, my wife. 3 days later, I was discharged from the hospital. Thanks to Ethan's care and the best medical treatment money could buy, my physical wounds were healing rapidly. The bandages on my head had been replaced with a small, neat dressing, and the scrapes on my arms were hidden beneath a beautiful, elegant emerald green silk dress Ethan had bought for me. Today was the day of Keller Tech's second-round funding press conference. Blake had spent the last 3 days frantically trying to contact me, sending hundreds of texts begging for forgiveness, claiming he was confused and that Noelle had manipulated him. But I had blocked his number, leaving him to stew in his own panic. The press conference was held at the Grand Regal Hotel, the very venue where Blake and Noelle had planned their sham wedding. When Ethan and I arrived, the ballroom was packed with journalists, investors, and photographers. Blake stood on the stage, wearing a sharp suit, trying his best to look confident. But the sweat glistening on his forehead and his darting eyes betrayed his extreme anxiety. Noelle sat in the front row, looking pale and nervous, clutching her designer handbag. And so, with this new round of funding, Keller Tech will expand its AI-driven logistics platform globally, Blake announced into the microphone, his voice shaking slightly. We are honored to welcome our primary investor, who will be joining our board of directors today. I'm afraid that investment is no longer on the table, Mr. Keller. The double doors of the ballroom swung open. A collective gasp echoed through the room as the journalists turned their cameras toward the entrance. I walked in, my hand resting comfortably in the crook of Ethan's arm. I held my head high, my posture regal and confident. The emerald green dress clung to my figure, and the diamonds around my neck caught the flashing lights of the cameras. Beside me, Ethan radiated a powerful, intimidating aura that immediately silenced the room. Dawn. Blake gasped, his microphone picking up his terrified whisper. Noelle stood up from her seat, her face turning completely white. What is the meaning of this? One of the journalists shouted, recognizing me. Isn't that Dawn Nichols, Mr. Keller's fiance? And why is she with Ethan Vance, the CEO of Vance Group? Ethan and I walked down the center aisle, the crowd parting for us like the Red Sea. We stepped onto the stage, standing directly opposite Blake. Allow me to introduce myself, Ethan said, his voice carrying effortlessly through the microphone. I am Ethan Vance, CEO of the Vance Group. And this is my wife, Dawn Vance. The ballroom erupted into chaos. Flashbulbs went off like fireworks. Your wife? Blake stammered, backing away from the podium. Dawn, what are you doing? This is my press conference. You're ruining everything. No, Blake. I am correcting everything, I said, stepping up to the microphone. My voice was calm, clear, and devoid of any emotion. 5 years ago, I helped you build Keller Tech from scratch. I wrote the core algorithm for our logistics platform. I held 40% of the company's intellectual property rights. Dawn, please, don't do this here, Blake begged, his voice dropping to a low whisper as he tried to block the microphones. We can talk about this privately. I'll give you whatever you want. But today, I continued, ignoring him completely, I am officially withdrawing my intellectual property from Keller Tech. I have also sold my 40% share in the company to the Vance Group. What? Blake screamed. You can't do that. Without your algorithm, the platform is useless. We'll go bankrupt. That is no longer my concern, I said coldly. And as for the second round funding, the Vance Group has officially pulled out. Not only that, but we have filed a formal lawsuit against Keller Tech and you personally for financial fraud and intellectual property theft. Dawn Nichols, you bitch. Noelle shrieked from the front row, unable to control herself any longer. She rushed toward the stage, her face twisted in rage. You're doing this because you're jealous. You're jealous because Blake loves me. You're trying to destroy us. Jealous? I looked down at Noelle, pitying her. Noelle, I think you should be more worried about your own future than Blake's company. I gestured to the large screen behind the stage, which was supposed to show Keller Tech's financial slides. Instead, the screen flickered, and a document appeared. It was the university clinic's medical file from 7 years ago, alongside Noelle's real blood type reports and the forensic analysis of the forged signature. 7 years ago, Noelle Reed used my identity to cover up her own abortion and affair with a married man, I announced to the stunned crowd of journalists. She then systematically leaked those rumors to destroy my reputation and isolate me. I have officially filed criminal charges against her for identity theft, medical fraud, and defamation. The journalists went wild. The clicking of cameras was deafening. No, this is a lie. This is photoshopped. Noelle screamed, clutching her head as the reality of her exposure hit her. Blake, help me. Tell them it's a lie. But Blake didn't even look at her. He was staring at the screen, his face entirely hollow. He realized that his company was gone, his reputation was ruined, and the woman he had sacrificed everything for was a pathological liar who had manipulated him from day one. You did this to me, Blake whispered, looking at Noelle with a sudden vicious hatred. You ruined my life. You told me she was damaged. You told me she was nothing. Blake, no. I love you. I'm carrying your baby. Noelle sobbed, reaching for his hand. Get away from me. Blake roared, shoving Noelle away with such force that she fell to the ground, her expensive handbag spilling its contents across the stage. 2 police officers in uniform stepped into the ballroom, making their way directly toward Noelle. Noelle Reed, you are under arrest for identity theft and fraud. Please come with us, the officer said, pulling her up and clicking handcuffs around her wrists. Blake. Help me. Blake. Noelle shrieked as she was dragged away, her makeup smeared with tears, looking utterly pathetic. Blake fell to his knees on the stage, his head in his hands, weeping silently as the journalists surrounded him, shouting questions. Ethan gently took my hand, pulling me away from the chaos. Let's go home, Dawn, he whispered. I looked back at Blake one last time, the man who had once called me dirty, the man who had abandoned me for his own selfish desires. He was now kneeling in the dirt of his own making. I turned away, not feeling a single ounce of regret, and walked out into the warm sunlight with the man who had truly saved me. 3 months later. The autumn wind was cool, rustling the golden leaves in the garden of Ethan's private estate. Keller Tech had officially declared bankruptcy. Blake's assets were seized to pay off his massive debts, and he was currently facing multiple lawsuits for financial fraud. Stripped of his wealth and his arrogance, he had been reduced to working a low-paying job in a small town, completely blackballed from the tech industry. Noelle's trial had ended last week. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison for identity theft and medical fraud. During her time in custody, a DNA test revealed that the baby she was carrying was not even Blake's, it belonged to another married man she had been sleeping with at the overseas branch. When Blake found out, he reportedly had a complete mental breakdown in the courtroom. But none of that mattered to me anymore. Their names were just distant echoes of a past life. I stood in front of the full-length mirror in my dressing room, wearing a simple, elegant off-the-shoulder white wedding gown. It wasn't flashy or dramatic, but it was made of the softest silk that flowed gracefully around my ankles. A pair of warm hands gently wrapped around my waist from behind. Ethan pressed his chin against my shoulder, looking at our reflection in the mirror. He wore a simple black suit, his dark eyes filled with a tenderness that still made my heart flutter. "Are you ready?" he asked softly. "I am," I said, turning in his arms to face him. "This time, there are no crowds, no media, and no fake ceremonies. Just us," Ethan whispered, leaning down to kiss me. Our wedding was held in the garden of our estate, with only a few close, genuine friends and my family present. My mother had wept tears of joy when she saw the way Ethan looked at me, with a reverence and love that Blake had never once shown. As we stood before the marriage officiant under the canopy of golden leaves, Ethan took my hands in his. "Dawn," he said, his voice steady and filled with deep emotion. "I promise to protect you, but today, I promise to cherish you. I promise to stand by you, not as your savior, but as your partner, your husband, and your equal. For the rest of our lives." I smiled, my eyes shining with tears of pure happiness. "Ethan, you pulled me out of the darkness and showed me what real love looks like. I promise to love you, to trust you, and to build a beautiful life together with you. You may now kiss the bride," the officiant smiled. Ethan leaned in, his hand gently cradling my cheek. His kiss was soft, lingering, and filled with a quiet promise of a bright, beautiful future. There were no cameras, no fake angles, and no hidden agendas. Just a real, beautiful beginning.